Mike back here with Canadian Musician right now at the Sheraton Centre Hotel where Canadian Music Week's Music Summit is going on. And you may have already recognized the man next to me. He's very recognizable.
I certainly hope so. Thank you. Nice to be here.
Thank you. And, of course, the one and only Paul Shaffer, probably known around the world, of course, as band leader for David Letterman for many, many years. Prior to that, some folks may not know, you're actually Canadian, grew up in the Toronto scene, and also from there played in the SNL band. So it's been a long career and long journey for you, but thank you for doing this. Is this your first time, or at least first time in a while at Canadian Music Week?
I think it is my first time. I've heard a lot about it. I just put out a CD myself on Rhino Records, Paul Shaffer and the World's Most Dangerous Band. My producer, Richard Goddard, a big fan of the Canadian Music Week, and so am the record exec Seymour Stein, who signed me. He used to have Sire Records, back in the day.
Absolutely.
Both of these two guys, Canadian Music Week, they swear by it. They come up here, they find artists, they sign them, they make them into stars.
That's a dream, at least. It seems like the profile CMW has been growing, as you say. But I want to find out. Before we get into the new album and the new tour, I'm just curious. After Letterman called it quits, and you knew you were suddenly going to have a lot of time on your hands, how quickly did you decide, I'm going to get the boys back together and do an album, do a tour?
Well, not so quickly. I spent a year sort of trying to figure out what I'm supposed to do now after 33 years with Letterman. Yeah. Slow down? No, that's not what I want to do. Keep playing the piano? Yes. And then I got a call from Seymour. Do you want to get back in the music business, make a record? And it was like a godsend, because once I got in the studio, I cheered up and I realized this is what I like.
Had you kept out of kind of the touring and recording during the 33 years or anything?
I just didn't have time. I was anchored in New York, happily so, doing that Letterman show every day. Made a couple of records actually through the years, but could never really focus on them like I did this one, because I always had to go on television the same day. This one was 100%.
And I know it's kind of bringing you back to your roots. Grew up in Toronto. I actually just recently, just by happenstance, listened to your interview with Mark Maron that you had done, where you went into detail about the Toronto scene.
Born in Toronto, Mount Sinai Hospital, raised in Thunder Bay, Ontario. Came back to Toronto to go to university here.
And what I found interesting there, because of course the Yorkville scene of the 60s in Toronto is well known, but you've made a point of saying it wasn't just about Yorkville back then. There was a whole other scene going on that you were more familiar with. What was your role in there? Or I guess how, from your perspective, what was going on in Toronto outside of Yorkville back then?
Well, I was a student at the University of Toronto studying sociology, philosophy, psychology. Yorkville, though, was absolutely everything to me. I mean, I loved to go down Yonge Street, too, to the Cock Door and Ronnie Hawkins' Hawk's Nest, non-alcoholic bar for us kids. There was a thriving soul, rhythm and blues, and show band scene here in Toronto that was a big influence. For me, everybody had a Hammond B3 organ. That's the sound that I loved, too, and wanted to play. And, I didn't spend much time on my studies.
Fair enough. And jumping ahead here in the timeline, but we don't got much time ourselves. Tell us a bit about this new self-titled album, Paul Shaffer and the World's Most Dangerous Band. I know, who'd you bring together for the band? Is it all guys you previously played with? And I know there's also quite a number of pretty well-known guest artists on this as well.
Well, it is. Band-wise, yes. The whole band from the Letterman show, we were in the trenches together every single night.
I didn't realize it was the same band.
It is the same expanded band with 3 horns, 2 guitars, piano, bass, drums. Everybody that we know and love from all those years. Some of the tunes we sing ourselves. Felicia has a great voice. Will Lee, terrific. Also, many of our favorite guest vocals. Dion, the great Dion from Dion and the Belmonts. Jenny Lewis, a wonderful chick who's on the scene right now. Darius Rucker from Hootie and the Blowfish, an old friend. Bill Murray, an old friend and movie star who sings a tune on the album.
And not comedically, he's singing.
Yeah, it really does sing it. And I mean, it gets a few laughs as well. But he really did a great job singing it. And Shaggy from Jamaica, fantastic. All kinds of people came aboard and made this album really a fun kind of an all the way through listen.
That's about as diverse a group of vocalists as you could possibly find, I think.
It is, yeah, but I guess the music is kind of diverse, but yet it's all rock and roll and R&B.
It's R&B covers from what I believe.
For the most part, a couple of original ones. The ones that Billy Murray sings that's an original one, and another one that Will Lee sings is an original one. But all the rest of them covers. Some we know, some I had never heard of that were friends. The favorites of some of my advisors and producers.
Having spent those 33 years as a house band, that's a hell of a way to really boost your chops and become, I guess, proficient at almost any style of music. Going back into the studio after having that very long-term experience, what did you gather from it? Did you realize, hey, I'm even better than I was back then?
Well, I certainly realized that I love the experience of playing in the recording studio and being under that microscope, listening back, figuring out what you could do better, trying it again, trying to perfect your part. A lot of fun. I enjoyed that. I had no real direction when I started because I am a studio musician. I and my guys, and gal, we can play everything, really. So what were we to play? Well, we got suggestions from everybody and really just ultimately settled on our very favorites.
You say at heart you're a studio musician. I guess to pass on I guess your many years of advice to our readerships, our viewers of musicians. If you could boil it down to one or two things, it can be a musical skill, or it could just be a work ethic or a personality sort of thing. But what would you say makes a key studio musician, somebody who can get work?
First of all, you've got to be realistic about the times that we're in now. It's not exactly like it was in the 70s and 80s when there was a studio scene in New York and Toronto when you could call up a band, get a band from an answering service and make a great record. Computers, unfortunately, are making the records today, fortunately or unfortunately. So the studio scene is not what it was, but certainly you got to be enthusiastic. You got to love the music. There's no reason to come in if you don't really love the music, because that's what's going to show up on the record.
Cool. And I guess before we wrap up here, you're going out on the road with the world's most dangerous band. Where can, over the coming months, are you doing many Canadian shows? Where can people check you out?
Actually, we're only doing this one, and it's tomorrow night. Thursday night is the date, the 30th of April, I think, in Niagara Falls. Niagara Falls at the casino there, yes. And otherwise, we're doing every place from Chicago to Atlanta, Georgia, and Beverly Hills, California, and everywhere in between.
All right. Right on, Paul. And I know you're about to head out here. You're hosting the Live Music Industry Awards here at CMW today. It's been a true pleasure and honor. It's fun to see you in person and hear your voice after all these years of seeing you on TV. So thank you for making the time.
That's very complimentary of you, and it's nice to be here. And I'm looking forward to hosting these Live Music Awards. I think I'm going to have a lot of fun.
Awesome. Thank you, Paul.